Welcome to the Volunteer Recruiting Challenge. This is the challenge where I, Kenny Connolly, am going to attempt to recruit 50 volunteers in the next 90 days. So thank you to all of those who are joining me in this challenge. And hey, we're going to do this together. When deciding to start this challenge and thinking about it, I realized there's probably 50 different things that I could probably do to start things off, or probably even like 50 things I could do all at once to get started, but that's not helpful. So we're going to start with one thing. And the one thing I want to focus on to start with is this practice I like to call clarifying the need. You know, when I talk to ministry staff oftentimes about volunteer recruiting, I find that oftentimes we don't really know how many people we need. Even in this challenge, I've been saying that I need to recruit 50 volunteers in the next 90 days because I think I need about 50 volunteers, but I don't know that for sure. I need to clarify the need, because I have found that when you have a specific number that you've targeted, it's way easier to recruit towards that number. It's way easier to communicate how close you are to getting to the volunteers that you need. So the first step is clarifying the need. Now, if you lead in student ministry or maybe adult ministry or something like that, it might be easy to come up with a number. Like we've got 12 small groups and we want 2 leaders, so that's 24 leaders. Like, it might be really easy. But if you've ever talked to a children's ministry leader about the number of volunteers that they need, you'll find out that that's a complicated question and oftentimes a complicated answer. Why? Because you may ask a children's leader, like, how many volunteers do you need? And the answer is probably going to be something like, well, it depends. Like, it depends if they're going to serve every week, every other week, or once a month. Like, that one variable could widely affect how many volunteers they actually need. So my exercise of clarifying the need, it'll work for any ministry area, but it's super helpful for those who lead in children's ministry. So here's how you do it. Okay, here's what the way it works. You're going to map out the physical location of your ministry and identify all the rooms that you use on the weekend. All your preschool rooms, your toddler baby rooms, your elementary rooms, your preteen rooms, and get them all on a spreadsheet, get them all on a piece of paper, and then identify how many volunteers you need in total in each of those rooms. So maybe you need 4 volunteers in an infant room, and you need 3 volunteers in 2 different toddler rooms, and you need maybe 2 volunteers for every small group in this larger elementary room, and you've got maybe 5 small groups, so 5 times 2. So it's not that hard to come up with a list, but do that. Go one room at a time. How many volunteers do you need in total for that room? And I'm not talking about like total, this month. No, for this upcoming weekend, how many human beings do you need in that room, in that room, in that room? Make sure you add up the non-location specific volunteers as well. Maybe you got some special need buddies because you have some kids who require buddies. And so add that to the total. Maybe your check-in volunteers. You've got a certain number of those that help with check-in. Maybe you need 5 for each service on Sunday. So make sure you include those. Maybe, your tech volunteers. You want 3 or 4 people on stage leading worship. You want a host and a storyteller. Maybe you need a producer, a behind the scenes person. So come up with that list and don't make it pie in the sky. A healthy ministry would look like a ministry that had all these people in all these roles. Okay. Figure that out for each service. Some services might be smaller, so you need less volunteers. Other services might be bigger. So account for those things and come up with a number. It won't be too hard. And the number is, how many human beings do you need this Sunday? Okay? Any typical Sunday, this is how many human beings I need. It might be 30. It could be 15. It could be 90. It could be 247. Whatever. It's like, come up with that actual number. Okay? That's the total number of volunteers you need. Okay? Now take your current roster. Okay? Your volunteers that currently exist. Now, you may have them all in your spreadsheet. You might have them in Planning Center. You might have them on a big dry erase marker on the wall. Just make sure you have an accurate number, not volunteers who haven't served in 6 months. Like, these are your current active volunteers, okay? And I would say, let's not count your subs, okay? If you got subs, people that just fill in where you need them, let's not count them, okay? Come up with all your volunteers and put them all in a list, okay? Put them all in a list. Make sure you don't duplicate them. Make sure you got every single one of them. And now what I want you to do is I want you to assign a value to each one of those volunteers, okay? You're not judging these volunteers, but assign a value. For all your volunteers that serve every week, put a 1 by their name, okay? Put a 1 by their name. For all the volunteers that serve every other week, put a 0.5 or a half by their name. And for all the volunteers that serve once a month, put a quarter, 0.25 or 1/4 by all their names, okay? So here's the trick, because what we're looking at is how many volunteers do you have this Sunday? How many do you need this Sunday? Once you have all those volunteers from your current roster and you add them all up, add all the values, okay? All the ones, all the halves, all the quarters, and total it up. The difference between the total of what you need based on mapping out the rooms and your current value of your existing volunteers, that's going to tell you how many volunteers you actually need. It might be an interesting number. It might be like, 22.5 or 22.75. But what it does is it breaks down apples to apples, oranges to oranges, that you're not counting your weekly volunteers the same way you're counting your every other week volunteers or your once a month volunteers. And that's going to give you a real number. It might be that you need 37 and a half volunteers. Now, here's the thing to think about. That's how many you need to pull off this upcoming Sunday. It might mean that you can get there with 37 volunteers, 37 human beings, and maybe one person who serves every other week. Or it could be, I'm not going to do the math in my head, it could be twice that number in every other week volunteers, but it gives you a target of how many people. So when somebody asks you, well, how many volunteers do you need? You can say, for this upcoming Sunday, I need this number. Now, you can get there multiple ways, but it gives you clarity on what you need. So that's the exercise. Tomorrow, I'm going to show you. I'm going to walk through my current volunteer roster and my current volunteer needs and identify how many volunteers I need. So this is a great exercise. Give it a shot. Pull out a piece of paper, pull up a spreadsheet, and identify your need. Clarify your need as we continue this journey on recruiting 50 volunteers in the next 90 days.